All right. It says I'm live. Hello everybody. Didn't necessarily expect to be live tonight, but that's fine. Um, so you can hear me this time on this screen, which is nice. I don't know how long I've been using this and you haven't been able to hear me. If you could tell that the is a little different. Ooh, girl, I should have put on some lotion. It's fine. So I was out microwaving a non-witch and I started seeing this bam, bam, bam. Hey D, how you doing tonight? Bam, bam, bam. And I was like, what is that? Like I know this pattern a lot. And it was like a smoke detector. Like a fire alarm going off. Um or maybe it was the actual like fire alarm. Yeah, it was the fire alarm because I lived in dorms, and so every now and then we had tests, and sometimes there would be that person that was like literally in the shower, and so they'd be standing outside in like a towel, and it would be like November and freezing, and you feel bad for them. But I don't think it was anyone's alarm. I think it was just like a bug outside. And then when I opened the door to check, um, and then I closed the door and the sound was gone. I'm doing pretty well. I am accepting some things. Not slowly, I'm positioning myself to, I guess, integrate things that I need to integrate, which is fine. Um, the next phase, I guess, of what I'm doing requires more from me. And so today not necessarily resting, but I've been recuperating. I don't think recuperating is the word. Kind of, sort of, a little bit of recuperating, kind of, sort of preparing. I feel like I've been allowing the world to be rewritten on deeper and deeper and deeper levels. And so it's gone like further and further back to the past for me, I guess. In many ways, past lives maybe. Um, but I'm good. I'm coming into a space of not only acceptance, but allowing myself to expand into those spaces, which is cute. I've seen this card on Reem's channel a few times. So I've been wrapping up all of this old cycle heavy stuff, preparing myself for that new cycle lighter stuff. Bottom of the deck is the Six of Cups exactly. And the Mother of Wands is under that Six of Cups. Preparing myself for remembrance. And it's almost like it's Samyaza, right? When he looked up at the heavens and remembered who he was, he cast off sort of that life that the universe had given him. And I don't think, like for me at least, it's not going to be a complete separation and departure from, who I am. But there are certain experiences that no longer really serve, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm preparing myself for. So I'm going to shuffle. I have the Wild Unknown Tarot. I have like basically my easy like go-to decks. This one just popped up. This is a deck I honestly don't work with too often. It's the Damon Tarot. I don't even know why I bought it. There was this one dude in my life at the time who was like super edgy or whatever, and I got it. Now, luckily for me, gorgeously enough, I never get any of the big bads, but I often get, or a lot of times I'll see like different native deities or spirits, or like deities or spirits that are associated with other cultures and customs that are demonized in Christianity because they're not God, right? It's not God, Jesus, or an angel, therefore it's a demon, regardless of how, divine it is. And I guess I've been like the Russian, what was the other language? Japanese. I haven't gotten Chinese yet, which is cool because Chinese I really don't remember. Not that I know Russian either. Oh, that's yeast. But today, for some reason, my brain is like, it's remembering Latin. And in Latin, ego, ego, is just like I. And so, and this is when I was like coming out of the shower or in the shower. It was this energy. Hold up. Boom, boom, boom. All right, there's my leg. There's this energy of like ego, it's I. It's just I. That's all it means. And so in is it psychology or whatever? There's the id, the ego, and the superego. The id is the primal part of us, like our more animalistic nature. The ego is that more sort of civilized nature that's concerned for the self, and the superego is that what's whole, like our concern for the well-being of others. And in that, because there are quite a few people who will break into the etymology of words and like what they come from and what it means, and so they don't say certain things. And I think it's interesting that etymologically, is that a word? Or according to the etymology of the word ego, it literally just means I. And I think it's interesting that it's almost like in the way that we look at social media and companies that kind of sort of, like sell us stuff and how they profit and benefit off of our low self-worth, low self-esteem, and our like distorted image and view of self. It's like spiritually the same thing has done with ego. It just means I. We demonize ourselves. We pit ourselves against ourselves, and then we go out and we buy into whatever is spiritually hot that makes us feel less whatever we don't like, right? And I don't know why that kind of sort of, it was just really sitting with me today. And then I got out the shower and I'm like, oh yeah, well, that's the Hierophant's game. It's all twisted and tangled, and there's nothing, I don't know. I would challenge us to always accept death. Ooh, there's that transformation. But I'm Googling this. So, the first time I heard id, ego, and superego, I was in high school, I think, and we were reading Lord of the Flies. And the Lord of the Flies is Beelzebub, and Beelzebub is in this deck. That's how I ended up pulling out this deck. I don't want to go looking for Beelzebub. I'm like, I get scared easy. Like, that's why I ain't trying to do a whole bunch of stuff. So here is some simple psychology. Id, ego, superego. Id is your instincts. Ego is your reality. Superego is morality. Freud's most enduring and important idea was that the human psyche has more than one aspect. 1932, 3 parts. The id, ego, superego, all developing at different stages in our lives. These are systems, not parts of the brain or in any way physical. And I'm just reading off of simplypsychology.org/psyche. Because again, it's been a minute. So the id is the primitive and instinctive component of personality. It consists of all the inherited components of personality present at birth, including the sex instinct, eros, and the aggressive instinct, thanatos. The ego is the part of the id which has been modified by the direct influence of the external world. The ego develops to mediate between the unrealistic id and the external real world. It is the decision-making component of personality. Ideally, the ego works by reason, whereas the id is chaotic and unreasonable. Now, the superego incorporates the values and morals of society, which are learned from one's parents and others. It develops around the age of 3 to 5 years during the phallic stage of psychosexual development. And girl, y'all know about Freud and all that stuff. The superego's function is to control the id's impulses, especially those which society forbids, such as sex and aggression. It also has the function of persuading the ego to turn to moralistic goals rather than simply realistic ones and to strive for perfection. So, in that, it's like, if this word literally means I, it's literally Latin for I. Let me look that up. Latin ego. Ego me, mihi me. Ego is the Latin word for I. So if a person seems to begin every sentence with I, it's sometimes a sign of a big ego. Which is interesting because, in a lot of sort of conflict resolution-y types of environments, they tell you that, like, if you are in a space of contention, to make sure that you remind the person that it's how you feel. Like, I feel that, and I think that, so that it comes off a little less projecty, but apparently if you use the word I too much, then you got a big ego. And honestly, I feel like it's just one of those really, really subtle, hierophant-y sort of things that happened that we continuously play into and that keeps us separate. And it had its time, yes. And should we, for what the ego has come to mean outside of just the word I, are there things that we should be, mindful of? Yeah. This is that rune. Russell, give it a name. Give it a name, or discover the name. Find the name already, Russ. Come on. Come on, Russ. It's the one that's like that. It's the one that he ended the video with. The ego, like that, is the ego that branches the id with the superego. It branches our sort of more instinctual, primitive, self-preservational instincts with our ethical morality, what is better for the collective, right? The ego is that which balances them. It's like it's the body, right? It's like your skin. It separates your internal from your external reality. It isn't necessarily something to be continuously demonized. So, you keep doing all that social media stuff where you're comparing yourself to other people because there are things that you don't like about yourself, right? And again, just like when we're physically separate from self, when we're spiritually separate from self, we're just as vulnerable. But now we get spiritual things instead of Lamborghinis. The Two of Swords came out. Oh, here's the Ten of Cups. Bottom of the deck, sideways, is the Gardener. Moon in Libra, Saturn in Taurus, Mars in Pisces. I feel like this, for me, it's reading very much so that Hierophant energy. Where it's like, Hierophant teaches us what things sort of mean, right? And we go along with those meanings. And then that sort of, with the Taurus, with the Saturn in Taurus, it's like that's what encodes our physical reality, these thoughts and ideas that are not necessarily our own. That's this energy when it's not great. So what we're coming into is we're listening more to the divine. The divine is coming in and it's dispelling, it's clearing things up. It's like if things are if things are especially foggy or confusing right now, it's like because now it's interesting, but it's like you're coming into clarity now. The fog and the confusion, that's all of that conflated, intentionally misleading stuff that Hierophant energy has been pumping out to keep us sort of buying into reality, or the version of reality that we've been living in. It's like you're starting to see how much it doesn't make sense. And that is the second rune, or the first rune, I guess, that doesn't have a name either. Come on, Russ. Come on, Russell. I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Goodness. I don't know why. Like, they're coming out heavy, so I need some names, Russ. I appreciate what you do for us, for the collective. Let me not sound so, like, pushy and ungrateful or whatever. But this is us getting a more complete picture, and because of that, it's like now we're seeing all the things that didn't really make sense. And now it's breeding this Ten of Cups energy, because it's like we're listening to the divine more so than our programming. We're going internal instead of looking at that external reality that's been forged and crafted. Right? And that's again why in the Seven of Pentacles her eyes are closed. She's building from that space of internal truth, and that's what gives her this. And it's so interesting that it's the Ten of Cups, Mars and Pisces, because when Mars was in Pisces, all I would hear is people talk about how everything was an illusion, nothing was real, and that you shouldn't do anything while Mars was in Pisces because nothing that you did would have any substance. Meanwhile, you know, Mars in Pisces is the whole gosh darn Ten of Cups. Mars in Pisces is, let me keep it cool. But Mars in Pisces is the fire that a dream needs to become reality. Fire is an element that everybody can see with their physical eyes. Water is an energy that you got to be aligned to. It's a vibe. You got to tap into it. But when like to put it out there in a way that like other people can see it, like that's what that was. And I heard so much of like just giving that opportunity up. That's when I really started to fall out of like with the way that we typically do astrology, because I just saw it as a huge missed opportunity. And then Mars went into Aries, and I don't know if that fared out any better for us. And then it retrograded in Aries, so it's in Aries like basically all year. And now it's all the way in Leo. So, you know, Mars has been moving since then. But anyway, see, here's that Eight of Swords. The Eight of Swords in this deck, it's the angel, but she's bound. Bottom of the deck is the bread of life, which is, it's like this reality that we live in where where spirit, the influence of spirit is very, very limited. Because, you know, see Hierophant energy. And then here's the Three of Swords. Just like, you know, we can more easily identify companies that profit off of like, you know, physical or more like day-to-day pain and all of those self like not great things. The same is true for that old Hierophant brand of religion and spirituality that preaches to us that we're broken, and that convinces us to demonize the ego when it literally means I. You're doing it spiritually now instead of on Instagram and TikTok and, you know, social media. It's the advent of social media that we can see, but, you know, we're illuminating all of those shadowy Hierophant tendrils at the same time. So, ooh, look, death. What? So we're transforming that as well. Was this the Three of Swords over here? Yeah, Three of Swords. Three of Swords, death. Love that. Now this is the one that I don't really want to get into. Every time I use this deck, I get nervous, which is why I like never use this deck. But then I'm always like, well, I've never like experienced anything like crazy dark or whatever. So, see, like here's Torngarsik, who's like an Inuit deity. It's an Inuit god who watches over the fishermen of Greenland, and he's a demon now because, you know, he's not Jesus. Not that there's anything wrong with Jesus, but, you know, did we really have to, like, go in and handle it that way? But that's always been something that just doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me that there is this kind, benevolent, loving force in the heavens who singled out one specific people to be saved, and everyone else is going to burn on earth at a time where we are so disconnected, where there isn't, you know, airplanes and internet and you can't just talk to someone on the other side of the world. We're just gonna, only one specific people got it. Okay. That's hard for me to believe, but, you know, I don't know. I feel like he loves all of us. See, and then here's Kali. And I love Kali. I have an appreciation and a respect for Kali. I still... Oh, I try to keep my distance. Love it from a distance. These I'm going to have to read, because I don't know anything about these. Unless it's one that I've seen. Like the Nikki's, who are like river spirits. And back in a time where water travel was basically the only travel, it was important to be respectful of them, because, you know, we didn't have the air yet. And the infrastructure of like roads and stuff wasn't as existent. We also didn't have a bunch of bridges that you can take if you didn't want to travel across the water. So that's why I'm using this deck. I'm using this deck because the ego, id, ego, super ego, Lord of the Flies. Shout out to Simon. Also, you know, pour one out for Simon. Life is cruel and unfair. Sometimes bad things happen to good people. Shout out to LB, Untitled Tarot. It's right. It's the truth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the Tower card in each of these decks. I'm going to look from the top, even though it's going to take longer. I'm going to pull off the top, and then I will do my best to not reveal the card on the bottom. And then over here, I'll pull above and below Beelzebub to see sort of like what energy is matching that. And another thing is like devil energy's been coming out a lot. But it's like devil energy isn't coming out as what we think of like that shadowy evil devil energy. Devil energy is almost coming out as everything that Hierophant energy would sort of keep us away from. Everything that Hierophant energy deems as like occult and evil, all the while like participating in all of that information itself. Like benefiting off of that information, but separating those that follow it from it to maintain those structures and systems of power, right? Anyway. Ooh, 9 of Swords, 4 of Wands, and the 8 of Wands. And these are in reverse. Yeah. Oh, because I put them that way. Well, I'll look at these in reverse. 9 of Swords in reverse, 4 of Wands in reverse, and the 8 of Wands. Now, it doesn't matter if the 4 of Wands in this deck is in reverse or upright, because the portal is the portal. It's about alignment. Whatever you're aligned to, the 4 of Wands will give you. It's a mile marker, right? Mile markers are neutral. It was like, oh, you're going 5 miles east, 5 miles west, 5 miles north, 5 miles south. It's not necessarily closer or farther, because it's us who sort of navigates. The markers are just the markers. Now with the 9 of Swords in reverse, in this deck it doesn't necessarily change too much either. Because like when it's upright, the top eye looks off to the left. When it's in reverse, the top eye is still looking off to the left. So there isn't too much difference here either. The 8 of Wands in reverse, though, feels like it's being drained of what makes it light. It's being drained of its light. Instead of it being inspired and then illuminating, it's like it's being drained of that and it's getting darker and darker. And so I feel like that's like, just because you reach a certain space of enlightenment doesn't necessarily mean that all of your problems and worries and troubles are automatically solved, right? There may still be some things that you are challenged to do. And then look at this. This is interesting because there's a 9876. Wow, see, that's the one thing I don't like about this. Here's the 9876. But this 4 comes in between the 9 and the 8. But again, like this 4 is just the portal. And so this feels like algebra. Because it's almost like this is an equal sign. 8 of Wands, 7 of Pentacles, 6 of Swords. There are no cups here. That's what's missing. Every element is present except for water, right? We go swords, fire, fire, earth, air. What's the next? Well, then here's the Father of Wands, so we still don't have any water. That 6 of Swords, it eliminates the water. That's it's that energy where we feel that progression in the movement, but we still don't really, it's like we're still disconnected from the divine. We're more connected to the Hierophant than we are the divine. Oof! Oh, the 10 of Cups though. Hold on, so this can't all be bad, right? So the 4 of Cups and the 3 of Swords, which is everything that I've already talked about, right? Because of that 3 of Swords, we don't really go any deeper with our spirituality. It's very much so a lot of like surface level, like where we're comfortable type of stuff. Or it was for a while. Then, then you start your shadow work and you start entering those places that are darker, where there is more fear, where there are heavier emotions, so that you can heal them and lighten those frequencies and not, Hangman behind that 4 of Cups. And not be so stuck. Right? Now you're positioned to sort of take things that you would have refused otherwise because afraid of the challenge, maybe. So moving over here, we have the Ace of Swords, the High Priestess, and the 9 of Wands. This, to me, feels like struggling to integrate and accept the things that we know are sort of for us. What the divine is offering us. It's almost like it's hard to see some of these things as true because of what we've experienced. But again, that was intentional. I'm looking for the Tower. What is the Tower? Oh, I've seen the Tower in this thing. Got that crown. Oh, look at what? The Sun, the Moon, and Judgment? Okay. Oh, that's 18, 19, 20. Oh, snap. Yeah, that's 18, 19, 20. Well, can I get a world card? No. Well, it's a Wheel of Fortune. And the wheel is shaped like a world, right? Like they got that same circular shape. It's like it doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. Oops. And again, that's almost like the story that came to me. That's that first rune that popped up. The one that's like, look a little deeper. Something here isn't right. You can tell, can't ya? Here's the 7 of Pentacles that literally comes out every single time I use this deck now, it seems. With the Tower. Oh my gosh, look. No, wait. No. It's the 4 of Pentacles. Last time it was not the... It was the 3 of Swords and the 4 of Cups. That's what it was. This is a card that I see all the time, too. And this card literally means everything that I've already said. This is a card of currency exchange. This is a sort of selling pieces of ourselves to find a little bit of love, acceptance, peace, or whatever. But in doing that, we're lessening our value. This energy is not going to give you a fair trade. Like, look at him. Would you trust that? I wouldn't trust it. Oh, wait. Okay, no. I was like, did I forget to... Here it is right there. Boom. There we go. I was like, I messed it up already. And the bottom of the deck, again, is the Death card. So this is what's being transformed. Because we're no longer buying into us not being who we were divinely created to be. And it's not that there isn't anything for us to improve on or that there isn't anything for us to work on, but if, the divine is love, then why would it almost in some ways encourage us to hate ourselves so much, or to act, to give ourselves, to limit the love that we give ourselves, right? Chasing a feeling is this. Oh, see, here's the angel. What was at the bottom of the deck? Oh, the deck. The angel. You can see that the ropes are still on her. This is what is tied up in the Eight of Swords in this deck. The angel, the Five of Wands, and the Emperor. The Five of Wands, the Emperor, and the Hierophant came out earlier. This is the angel sort of supporting us in the Emperor's fight to triumph over the Hierophant for a truer divine to be known. For one that doesn't, it's almost like, I hope I don't trigger anybody, but it's almost like an autoimmune disease, or it's an autoimmune disorder, what Hierophant has been doing to us as it's been turning us against ourselves. It's like self-cannibalizing. And that's what needs to stop. Right? It's not for us to like, again, it's not that we're necessarily like perfect as is in that way. But it's like we don't have to be so harsh with ourselves. We don't have to demonize those parts of us. It just popped back into my mind again. Was East. I don't know why that is just stuck in my head. I almost, before I came live, I was like, let me listen to these Russian earworms so I can find out where that came out. That was what? The Hermit, Judgment, and the High Priestess. Oof, almost got it. So it's the Seven of Swords, the Rogue, which came out as what is threatening divine feminine energy. This energy is what is putting us in a space of, that's what's putting us in a space of urgency right now. Because it's time for this to be like stopped or halted. It's almost like divine feminine is trying to come back in a way that will remind us of the true beauty nature, the true beauty and splendor of spirit. But there's a certain aspect of spirit that we have been conditioned to not see. And it's in that is so terribly ironic. That's why I was like, ew, I don't want this. So I was typing today. And what was I typing? Let me see. I was going to say win. But autocorrect was way out of line, was way off base. And was like... it was like Warmocked or something. I was like, what? And then I looked it up and it talked about the Third Reich. I was like, oh no. I was like, I was tight. No. What was I saying? I'll record it when it comes back. But it autocorrected when to Wehrmacht. And then I looked it up and it was talking about the Third Reich. I was like, oh no. Mm-mm. I am not for that. I am not about that. I am very much so against it. This for me is not one of those, I don't see good or bad. Everything is neutral. No, I'm not for that. I'm not with that. Get that out of here. You can go be neutral with that somewhere else. We take a very pointed stand on this channel, and if you don't like it, then I guess, we can learn to accept our differences. Or you can just go somewhere else. But then it's coming in as those things that like that like not see, NOTSEE, what we don't see. And I was like, ew. I'm not for that. I'm not for that. Spirit is gonna have to get it together. The snail and the frog are down here. I feel like that's important. There's that frog again. The frog was on the Eight of Pentacles. It is on the Eight of Pentacles in the Mystical Dreams Tarot. So what we're working on, it's being threatened by Hierophant energies through the sheer nature of what it is. Because it exists and operates outside of the bounds that the Hierophant has set. And so in that, it's like it's one of those things where it's so weird, but it's like you can find a lot of resistance in your everyday life. Like people are getting upset with you, things aren't working out for you for whatever reason. It's like you're encountering a lot of resistance, and I think LB was talking about that earlier. She was like, your old timelines are like they're coming for you because they don't want to be closed out. And it's almost like just how spirit can use you to give a message to someone that you don't even know randomly. There are other spirits that can use other people to get at you because of what you're coming into the position of closing out. And what is this? Mars, the Emperor, Death, and Judgment. Mars, the Emperor, Death, and Judgment. See, there's something that's been built on top of a more divine masculine energy, but that does not resonate more fully with it. And that's the part that's being struck. That's the part that's being destroyed. That is the part that is being preserved and protected. And it's that buzzard energy. Or vulture, sorry. The vulture energy, I think it was in Miss Remy Healing Scorpio. Summer solstice all signs. I think it came out for Scorpio. Or was it Aquarius? It was Aquarius. It came out for Aquarius. And it's this energy of like, because I was like, it's interesting because usually, like a vulture or a lot of decomposers will wait for something to be completely dead before it goes in and it starts picking things apart. But because it's coming in before it dies completely, then, first of all, we don't get this total meltdown. Second of all, it's like it actually preserves. It's a very maggot energy. It's a very leechy energy. Like if there was a wound that was infected, you would put maggots on it, right? And the maggots would only eat the dead and decaying and rotten flesh. Everything healthy was left. More modernly, the disservice that we do in the field of healing is that a lot of times it's complete destruction. There aren't a lot of technologies that we have that can be selective and that they only target what is to be removed. They only target what is cancerous or dead or decaying, right? If you pour hydrogen peroxide on a wound, it's going to it's going to reduce your potential for infection by killing the bacteria, but it's also going to damage healthy cells. And that's the thing about chemo as well. It's not selective in that it only targets that which needs to be removed. It's this total destruction energy. And that interferes and it actually impedes the healing process. But again, with Hierophant, it's like there are things that you're not really supposed to be fully healed from. Because if you're fully healed, why would you need the Hierophant? Mars in Capricorn, Moon in Aquarius. Here's Mars. Bottom of the deck, again, is that Death card here. The Three of Pentacles, oops, and Death. Oh, look, there's a Keeper! Oh, is that? Yes, it is. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're going to stop here. No, we're not. Oh. So where is she? She's at the top, right? So if you need if it helps you to see this more clearly, you can see that in the Eight of Swords, who the person who is tied, it's the angel. Temperance, the angel. And all of that light that she puts out is also, you get a moon. So you get, and like some of the moonlight is even obscured. Hierophant isn't about. Hierophant is one of those very like nasty, toxic energies that shadowy Hierophant. Hashtag not all Hierophants. Shadowy Hierophant energy, it's like spiritual gaslighting, basically. So behind, whoa, where did you come from? Ew, like, I did not see this Knight of Wands behind the Death card. This is what I saw. I was like, oh snap, the Keeper and and then I open it, I'm like, whoa, where did this Knight of Wands come from? The Knight of Wands is about moving forward with compassion. It's about voicing that which hasn't been, bringing light to situations, and it's about like the power of compassion and moving forward with that. Shout out to the Pride Tarot for that interpretation of the Knight of Wands, which is by far my favorite. So I guess that Knight of Wands is there. This is sitting in the space. They're both sitting in the space of illumination. But one is like, minor arcana court card. The other one is major arcana. It's interesting because the Knight of Wands has come to be my pre-strength card. But here it's pre-death. And I also love this energy because, again, I went to Red Lobster. I went to Red Lobster today because my brother wanted some Red Lobster. And I went over to the lobster tank. And this lobster, like, first it was moving forward slowly, but then it backed up and then it turned to face me. And I felt so bad because I know what the future of that lobster is. And that lobster did not have to put me on blast like that. I didn't even get any food. Goodness. But I felt bad. I was like, don't look at me. And then there's a lobster right there. But anyway, I like this because, again, it's like it's highlighting what needs to be transformed. This isn't us like blindly hacking at everything. Because, again, it can actually leave us worse off when we do that. And then we end up on like botched, right? But it's like, spiritual edition. So the Keeper is the awakened fool who is navigating this North Node, South Node, these two worlds who came out. In the shower, I saw that Charybdis again. I was like, oh my gosh. But I was like, I've already done Charybdis, so I'm not doing Charybdis again. But, here it is. The wheel of life is us sort of choosing and deciding which one we want to be on. Which is, since it's Capricorn at the top, Cancer at the bottom, the wheel of life is that North Node, is the future. We're in a space of transition right now. Here is the observer. The one who is watching us exercise or not wisdom in the situations that we find ourselves in. And when our wisdom list gets long enough, or the wise choices, actions, and decisions list gets long enough, it's like that's when we get the attention of some higher energy and we're initiated into something deeper. That's when we come into, and it's interesting because here's another Four of Pentacles, but this Four of Pentacles is a conservator. It's a protector. And this ain't no like Britney Spears hashtag free Britney conservatorship. This is a conservatorship where it's actually warranted, where the conservator actually cares and where they do what they do for the interest of the person that they have charge of, not to take advantage of their estate. But again, in this space of the conservator, we come into an ability. We're exposed to all of the elements, which gives us an opportunity to come into a mastery over them, right? And then we have that gardener, again, which kind of sort of just says that what we hold internally will be externally. The gardener is neutral, right? If you plant good seeds, then, you get good crops. If you plant weed seeds, you get weeds. And not like, marijuana, cannabinoids, hemp, like I don't know, dandelions. And you're like, who intentionally plants? Well, dandelions can be cute, so crabgrass. I don't know. Let's is there a weed that we all collectively dislike? Crabgrass. It's like you're intentionally planting crabgrass seeds instead of like, I don't know, corn. You can't eat crabgrass. I mean, you probably can eat crabgrass, but I don't know what the nutritional value of crabgrass is, right? Let's put some corn, some potatoes, some onions, some thyme and rosemary, maybe some basil. And then we have the heal the healer, the Four of Wands, and that Two of Swords. And the Four of Wands is the demiurge in this deck. I have to look it up because I don't know what a demiurge is. But it's someone who has the power to shape reality. And again, it's like now we're shaping reality from this healed space with the healer, the star being right there, rather than us shaping reality from that, twisted, weird, hierophant space where, it keeps us wanting more. I wasn't even going to do this tonight. It reminds me, though, in my meditation class, which I am so grateful that I had the opportunity to partake in. So shout out to those energy working, healing frequencies that came online when I was like, oh my gosh, this is cool. And then I was immediately like, oh my gosh, if I continue to develop this, then Spirit is going to ask me to do it, and I don't want to heal people. So that's a gift that we're going to put off to the side. But, I'm releasing that as well. It's going to be evolving, though. And I've already seen in a dream what that will look like. Not what it'll look like. I've already seen in a dream how to use it. I just never had the time to practice. So these I don't even know. So we're not even going to read them. But we're looking for Beelzebub. Because again, the book Lord of the Flies. I was about to say, excuse me, Andrus. I think I remember seeing those in Persona. I think that may be Astaroth. Isn't that like a Babylonian goddess or something? That was like demonized, who sits in the space of Venus, or nah? Maybe I'm like all the way wrong. Astarte. Astarte was that one. I watched something on Amazon Prime Video. I was like, okay. Astarte is the masculine version, or Astaroth is the masculine version of Astarte, who was like the Venus of Venusian. And again, oops, I almost flipped it over. We exposing them. Bottom of the deck is Prufless, who I have never seen. I get like the same 5 cards, I feel like, when I use this deck. And like most of them are about the past, present, and future. And inspiring collaboration in areas where it can be so difficult. So Prufless. Also called Bufus, is a prince and duke of hell in command of 26 military units, blah, 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 blah. He can manifest as a man with the head of an owl or a lion, Although he can be helpful to those who summon him, he enjoys setting people against each other and delights in causing conflicts, wars, and ruin. Conflicts, wars, and ruin, again, going back to that energy that's just like, okay. Said to have made his home in the Tower of Babel. And we're looking at the tower. The Tower of Babel is a story where the divine had to intervene because of the unchecked hubris of man. It's also interesting because the Tower of Babel biblically is where the birth of different languages came from, right? In order to ensure that they wouldn't just build another tower, they were given like different languages so that they couldn't communicate with each other. And I know Tower Energy, it came out last year, and it's almost like it's not like what we were doing, I guess. It's how easy it was for us to do that. And I just say that it's like because the information, the knowledge, the skills weren't taken. They were just challenged in coming into that space of communication. And it's also interesting because, it can be a little bit of a challenge or a struggle for some in certain religious spiritual spaces to hold space for those who believe in other things, and it leads to war sometimes and stuff like that. So the story of the Tower of Babel ends in tragedy, as all of the workers who were striving to create the great tower were scattered to the ends of the earth, and their languages were confounded, so that they would not have common ground or conversations going forward. As a result of that scattering, men who had previously worked together turned against each other, and that division lasts until this day. As a cautionary tale, that of the tower is similar to dealing with Prufless. Although he is willing to assist those who summon them in their endeavors, he seeks to divide and set groups against each other for his own amusement. Beware of individuals who spread gossip and discord for the sake of drama and divisiveness. Distance yourself from those individuals and do not be dragged in. It's funny because I feel like the beginning of my experience on YouTube was a bunch of just that. Gossip, discord, for the sake of drama and divisiveness. And I'm like I'm the type of person, I'm not really into drama, honestly. Especially if I'm at work or if I'm in a space where I'm trying to learn and grow. It's like if I wanted drama, I'd go home and watch Riverdale and just be stressed. But somehow I always, not always, but a lot of times I manage to just attract that one person who is so keen on informing me of all the drama that I really don't care about. And there was this one girl I worked with her. She was like, Patrick, I know you don't care and you're not involved in the drama, but let me tell you what's going on. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm over here just working, enjoying my summer, chilling. And y'all, I'm like, what are y'all, what? But I always attract people like that. Let me tell you what's going on. It's like, okay, I guess, but, This is that division, that Hierophant energy. So I've been focusing primarily on the division within self that gets us to buy into a lot of how Hierophant separates us from ourselves. But this is also just a space for us to be aware of the war and the separation that it breeds. Now, is that because of the Hierophant or is that because of the people? It's a catch-22, Which came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know. Does it matter? Because we got chickens nowadays and they lay eggs. And if we got a chicken problem, let's take care of the chickens before... I don't know. That's a bad example. Let's not get into that. Anyway, it's just to be aware of the division that it breeds between us. And it's interesting because I think I was talking, I don't remember, it had to be my girl, Ericsonia. It had to be her. And we were talking about how, or maybe it was somebody else, was talking about how, you can become religious. It was her. And it's you can become religious or become spiritual. But then it's you start getting pitted against other people. I forget how she said it more exactly or more precisely. But it was that energy of like, you would almost expect that as someone gets closer to the divine, they would be more loving and more accepting rather than more judgmental, rather than more or less willing to accept others. So, I guess we'll start up here and then we'll read all of this. And then here's this big old fly. You can see the Lord of the Flies. Is this the id? Is this the super ego? And then the ego is sort of like us learning to balance between the two with these towers. I don't know. We'll see. Hindu, what? Oh boy. However, in addition to some Christian and regional demons, and a handful of witches, objects, and ideas, there are also some spirits here that are better known as ancient gods, ancient and current gods of other countries and cultures. Some of that is a product of the time, and some of that is down to Colin de Plancy's conversion. Any belief that was different was evil and to be feared. However, just as I don't find the demon Astaroth's portrait particularly displeasing to the eye, he is said to have the face of an ugly angel. What does that mean? And I will argue that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I will also argue that interpretations of who is good or evil are in the inner eye of the believer, be they Prussian, Hindu, Inuit, or hellish. Now, again, it's my own natural biases that would say Prussian, Hindu, or Inuit. But I just read that. Again, it's like how anything that was not this is evil. And it's like, okay, girl, well, you have the right to believe what it is that you believe. So, oh my gosh. So I'm not going to read this whole thing. Well, I guess I will. Shield yourselves. Hold up. Where my bell at? Before I get into this, we just gonna make sure we're not clearing this space to welcome in these energies, girl. We need some kind of, I don't know. I need some protection before I dive into this because I ain't trying to pick up nothing. Ooh, that was rough. Hold up, let's do that again. I would say if you're feeling like you need it, D, then go ahead and do it. I'm just, I ain't trying to open up myself to anything that's like, I remember sometimes I would be like, the Damon Tarot, they fail so that we don't have to. Learn from their mistakes. Let's not repeat them. If they made mistakes, let's learn. So, we ain't gotta be all twisted and distorted and find ourselves falling from the light and grace of our Lord and Savior, the divine. So, the Marquis Andrus is a beautiful but dangerous demon who commands 30 legions. He has the body and wings of the heavenly host, but his head is that of a raven. He often appears carrying a sword and riding a huge black wolf. Andrus's most dangerous weapon is not his wolf or his sword, but his tongue. When summoned, he does not outright lie, but he sows discord. See, there's that energy of discord again. In the days when the magicians and their assistants summoned powerful demons, Andrus was known for turning the assistants against their masters, or convincing magicians that their assistants were trying to upstage them. Before summoning Andrus, the magician and his assistants would draw out a ring of protection on the floor, into which Andrus would be summoned and restrained. During the summoning, Andrus was incapable of crossing the unbroken circle, but Andrus would lure those in the room closer to the circle of protection until someone made a mistake and accidentally broke the circle. A single misstep by one person could, of course, mean death for all. However, as Andrus' specialty was teaching how to best destroy others, perhaps it could be argued that the risk of summoning him should have been self-evident. What I like about that energy personally is that, like, oh, y'all up to something weird? Well, let me just, and that's the thing, that's like that Tower of Babylon, or Babel, the Tower of Babel energy. Again, man is doing something that it shouldn't be doing, and so discord is sown in order to prevent something from happening. But within the context of this, especially with the Seven of Swords, Seven of Pentacles, Ten of Cups, this feels like it's this discord and this competition that's bred where we feel that, like, for us to gain, someone else has to suffer. For us to get the Ten of Cups, then, sometimes you got to Seven of Swords somebody. And that's just how the world is. That's just how the world works. And the longer we believe that, the more we teach that, the more we operate in it, the more true that becomes. But at the same time, it's almost like, well, if this is someone who would give in to that anyway, then you probably wouldn't want them holding something more divine. Right? It's like if someone would already stab you in the back, then you probably don't want to give them a gun, right? Because at least if they have a pocket knife, it'd be easier to fend off than, giving them a loaded sort of gun or whatever. Because it feels like this could be Hierophant that sets us it sets us against each other to keep us distracted from whatever would unite us and move the world forward in a way where Hierophant energy has a different relationship, where we have a different relationship with the Hierophant. But it also feels like in some way the divine was able to come in, because it's like what we're seeing now. It's almost like that old shady Hierophant energy, it's cannibalizing itself. It's like the Ouroboros, it's starting to eat its own tail. It's like when you are so much of a dismissive mind of others that you don't even notice when you start working against yourself. You don't even notice when you set yourself up. And that's what Hierophant energy has done. It spelled out its own destruction. And that energy came out when it was like the Hierophant is trying to stop the Wheel of Fortune from moving on to something else. But a stuck wheel creates a lot of built-up resistance that, if not handled, can lead to the whole clock just sort of falling apart. Andrus is a perfect example of risk versus reward, especially when the reward is harming others. Is it worth it really to harm our enemies when the risk to ourselves is at best to do things we know are wrong, and at worst to cause ourselves greater harm? Is it worth it really to harm our enemies when the risk to ourselves is at best to do things we know are wrong, and at worst to cause ourselves greater harm? That's exactly what I was saying. It's like when we start working against ourselves, or how like working against other people is actually, working against yourself. And going off of, again, that energy, that the War of the 1940s energy, it's like there could have been so many people who were like dismissive, or who weren't bothered, who weren't moved when it was somebody else. But then when they were on the chopping block, it's like, well, you didn't care when it was someone else. and you didn't care. It's like you didn't care when it was A through, I don't know, T, and your name starts with a W. And then it's like the closer it gets to you, the more urgency you feel. But by the time it hits you, anyone who would have been there to care for you, anyone who would have been there to fight for you, has already been sort of shipped off. That's that Knight of Wands energy. That's what we need to incorporate as we move forward, where we don't have to be personally suffering to care. Because if we have a dismissive attitude, it's like the world is going to wax worse and worse and worse and worse until eventually it's your turn. And when it's your turn, you may find the same nonchalant attitude that you gave when it was somebody else. Beware of cutting off your nose to spite your face, causing harm to others that only comes back to harm oneself. Ooh, Temperance. That's that angel energy. The Hermit. If this is... Ooh, the Two of Cups. The Two of Cups, the Hermit, and Temperance. I love this energy already as opposed to this energy. Because the Two of Cups, it's an energy that is connected to itself and others. And because of that, we're actually able to... It deepens connection in a way that words simply don't. Right? Like, it's one thing to say that the divine within you honors the divine within someone else. It's another thing to experience it. This, again, it's that ego energy. Come on, Russell! What are you doing? I need names. This is that one. The last one. Right? It's like that, and then the line, and then it's like that. Because this, with the dot, that's you. Connected to your center. That with the dot is someone else connected to their center. And when you're both connected, it's like it forms this bridge between you. That could also be like you and your reality. That's alignment between the internal and the external met in a way that honors what lies at the core of all. I've never seen the tears in this card. Ever. I've never seen those drops of water. I mean, to be fair, I just got my eyes fixed like in December. And then lasered in, March, April. I've never seen that before. But it doesn't look like it's coming from the eye of this. These tears, again, it's that same energy. These tears are coming from that space in between the throat and the heart. That's where the tears are coming from. Again, this is being in a space where the divine within someone else actually feels the presence of the divine within you in a way that it's been starved for so long as we've been fighting against ourselves. Literally fighting against ourselves internally and fighting amongst ourselves externally. And it's interesting because in the Spirit Keeper's Tarot, the healer is crying, which is the star. In this card, Temperance is crying, which is the angel. Who's this? Cerberus. Speaking of echidnas kids, right? And, Charybdis, Scylla, Cerberus. This is Judgment and the Spencers. I almost used that deck too, but I didn't. Cerberus stands at the gate of the underworld. And I feel like that speaks of death or of transformation. But it's like the gatekeeper to that transformation. Orpheus, who was Orpheus's lover? At first I could remember her name and I wouldn't remember Orpheus, and now I remember Orpheus but I can't remember her name. I feel like it starts with a T. Let's ask Siri. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Orpheus went to the underworld to bring his lover back to life. Pluto, Hades, told him, "You can have her, if you can make it out. However, you're not allowed to look behind you." And he was like, okay. Like, what? That was easier than I thought. And, he had to, getting there was difficult, right? He had to get past Cerberus. He actually lulled Cerberus to sleep with a lyre, I think. He put Cerberus to sleep. And I think he did some other stuff. But since his lover was a ghost, she didn't make any noise. And so it was literally at the finish line, when he was literally on the cusp of having everything that he wanted realized. He doubted. He questioned. Is she really behind me? Like, or did he just send me off as like a joke? And she couldn't say anything. She didn't breathe. Her steps didn't make any noise. So literally at the finish line, he turned around and she was sucked back to where she came from, back to the underworld. He lost her. He got that far. He went all the way he ventured all the way from the land of the living to the seat of the throne in the underworld, made it all the way back to the exit, and at the very last minute turned around and lost everything because he couldn't trust. And I feel like that it's almost indicative of what really prevents us from more fully being in these energies down here. Because we need our 3D physical senses to validate for us. We need our reality to validate for us. And again, the most, not interesting, but difficult potentially part is that it's almost like, because of the way things are set up and because reality is what it is, you will much more quickly get validation in what isn't as divine. And that's something that, we were talking about as we recorded the podcast episode today. It's like sometimes we get stuck in a 7 of Cups, 8 of Cups, 7 of Cups, 8 of Cups loop. Because, I lost it. Where was it? Because of whatever we're not seeing. Oh, it's because so when we 8 of Cups, we're supposed to heal and we're supposed to progress, right? But a lot of times what ends up happening is we end up choosing something else that we need to sort of learn from. We repeat the same karmic loops over and over and over again because we don't take the time to actually heal or to do whatever, right? If that's where we are, it's where we are. But while we're experiencing the same thing over and over and over and over, while we're building this foundation of every time I do something, I get this 7 of Swords. No matter what option I choose, it's always crappy. And so, because that's so much of what we experience, we sort of are convinced that that's just the way the world works. We're convinced that no matter what we choose, that's going to be the outcome. But in reality, it's like, well, we never really left the thing that we were supposed to leave anyway. We're still out there trying to find it. We're chasing it in something or someone else. Anyway, Cerberus. Oh, look, I opened right to it. Cerberus, or Cerberus, I think, is the alias and image that Kalinda Clancy chose to use for the demon Naberus. I don't know who that is. And Weyer's Pseudomonarchia Daemonum Nibiris, alias Nibirius or Cerberus, is described as a Marquis of Hell with the head of a raven and a croaking voice, in charge of 21 legions of demons. Although the demon mentioned by Weyer seems to have nothing in common with the three-headed dog of Greek myth, Colin de Plancy described his version of Cerberus as having the body of a man and appearing with either a raven's head or three dogs' heads. Girl, they done sent me all the way off. Although demonologists disagree on Cerberus's appearance and name, the description of his abilities are consistent through most texts. Cerberus/Nibiris is apparently a kindly and humble demon, gifted in the arts and sciences, and especially good at giving clear and compelling arguments. Here is someone especially good at giving clear and compelling arguments. This is an energy that'll probably also give you a clear and compelling argument, but it'll turn you against somebody else. And this is what I was talking about when it's like it's like past, present, future, associated with the arts and sciences. Like, this is the kind of stuff that I usually see, but I'll keep reading. Humble and kind, gifted in the arts and sciences, and especially good at giving clear and compelling arguments. Colin de Plancy claims that Cerberus uses his gift of pleasant conversation to teach those who summon him the gift of living in grace and dignity instead of striving for great riches or power. I love that. Living with grace and dignity instead of striving for great riches and power. Which, even when we are religious and spiritual, a lot of times we still want riches and power and, a person. We just go through different means and avenues of fulfilling it. It reminds me of those nice guys who are just as, creepy and grubby and shady and weird as the bad guys or the not nice guys. They just disguise their toxicity as, patience and listening and caring. But as soon as you tell them that, we're just friends, or I'm not interested, all of a sudden they flip. Oh, well, I did this and I did that. Oh, you don't like nice guys? I was nice to you. It's okay, so you're nice to me and you feel like you deserve? No, it don't work the other way and it don't work your way either. A lot of nice guys aren't actually nice. Not a lot of them. Some nice guys aren't actually nice. Some guys use nice because maybe they don't have the looks, they don't think, or they don't have the money, they don't have the cars. And so it's well, I can be nice. Maybe that'll help me get in her pants. Or his pants, You get them anywhere. They exist all over the place. It reminds me of something that one of my friends said. She was like, you don't put nice coins into women and then kitty cat dispenses and the kitty cat falls out. So right, it's not like a vending machine or one of those coin things where you put the coin in and then you twist it and then it pops out. No, that's not how it works. Now she ain't say kitty cat, but this is anyway. Focus on humility and finding comfort within means instead of wanting beyond budget. Colin de Plancy claims that Cerberus uses his gift of pleasant conversation to teach those who summon him the gift of living in grace and dignity instead of striving for great riches or power. And maybe that's another thing that is kind of sort of falling out, right? Maybe after last year, we can now appreciate things beyond money and status and things like that. Maybe we want more out of life now. And because we want more out of life, we're not as willing to buy into everything that we were buying into before. Because we've experienced what we've experienced, it's now that you know that you can work your job remotely, you might not want to go back in to the office. And your boss can't, now that you've experienced what you've experienced, now you know that you can't do this remotely. We need you in the office for this. That that's not a valid reason. Because you've had to experience otherwise. And again, that's the energy. It's almost as we come into more clarity, it's almost like the clarity leads to confusion because now we see how weird and warped and twisted everything was. It's like we're starting to be aware of sort of like how ensnared we were in that. I'm always scared when I use this deck, but it always works out. Here's pleasant conversation that gets us to think about what really matters in life. Here is a whole bunch of conflict and discord and sowing distrust amongst people, so that we feel okay with taking advantage of, stealing from, taking from, killing others to get what we want. And if that's what you're filling your cup up with, it's probably not going to taste how you want it to taste. It's probably not going to be great. And that's another thing. I think that's why it's like it can be challenging and difficult, maybe, to face the reality that maybe the world really is what some people said it is. And that maybe in you being so wrapped up in your day to day life, you being so busy or discrediting the real life experience of others, like it put you in a place where like you're like, ah, it's not that bad. It can't be. But then it's almost like, facing the truth of everything. Now you have to also sort of deal with what your um negligence, question mark, dismissiveness. Now you have to deal with the fact that maybe you were contributing to something in ways that you didn't even necessarily know. And I think a lot of times it's just how like people can be more upset by being called something like a racist instead of like being upset that maybe they've actually done something that is discriminatory and racist. It's like you get more upset for being called out for it than you do for actually potentially working against the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness of another. And again, it's like it can be sometimes some things that we're so ingrained in that we don't even fully like. It's like when that is your reality, when you haven't experienced anything different, it maybe makes it more difficult to sort of see it as a problem. And it's not to make anybody feel bad necessarily for what they've done, but the tower is like, how are you moving forward in the future? That's what's the most important right now. It's moving forward. And we're not moving forward in this way where we tell people to just get over it. We're moving forward with like actual actionable sort of things. Because like that's what this is. This is, again, that's why this is crying. It's almost like the soul is crying. Because now it's seen in a way where it knows it's seen, it knows it's love, it can feel the presence of the divine outside interacting with the divine inside, and it's something that it feels like we've been so starved of for so long. And when we start to honor that, and as the closer we shift to that, that's why everything is falling apart. Because the energies that we've been in don't support it. And so as this energy comes more and more to the surface, as the intensity of this increases, as this becomes the new dominant, everything that doesn't fit falls away. And it's a lot of stuff that's falling away. But it's not for you to blame or shame yourself. It's like, we just do better moving forward. So now I'm going to shuffle all of these. I guess I'll start with this one since it's already out. I'm just going to shuffle this one. It's really like, why you scared? I mean, I'm scared. I'm not afraid to admit I'm scared. I'm not trying to be spooks or nothing else. Now, when it comes to people, like, I'm not scared of people. You know what I mean? But it's like, I like to be intentional with, what energies I work with at the very least. What is that? Lo, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, or something like that. And it's like, yeah, but I'm not Evel Knievel either. I'm not out here trying to test my protection, and I don't want my angels to be working overtime, because if you overwork them, maybe one day you go too far, you slip up, and they're like, oh, well, now it's your karma. Now you got to learn a lesson. We told you get burned. And you're like, yeah, but you were supposed to protect me. It's like, okay, well, first of all, your protection does not extend to when you knowingly and willingly work against or transgress against someone else. When you do that, you violated your protection. Like, spirit, I mean, maybe not. What do I know? I'm just Patrick. Armor of God. We're here together. Yeah. But I'm also not, if it's not for me, it's not for me. And so in spaces where I have to tread carefully, I am not ashamed in treading carefully. Because like I said, I'm not trying to find out that today is the day that I crossed the line. Even though I wouldn't, but still, that's not the point. I shall not want. Yeah, some people like, ooh, they be putting their little angels through the ringer. And then they be like upset. Like, I thought. And it's like, okay, well, I don't know what you believing in and subscribing in, but there are some conditions on this. There are no conditions on the love. The love is unconditional. But when it comes to what you're protected against and what you're shielded from, if you put yourself in a position to learn a harsh lesson, then sometimes you got to learn it. Tell the truth, shame the devil, face the Lord. I've never heard that last part. I know tell the truth and shame the devil. But face the Lord, that's new for me. I like that. Tell the truth, shame the devil, and face the Lord. Don't come to me. Because, Patrick wasn't the one telling you to be out there doing whatever you was doing. And Patrick is not standing to take anybody else's karma or lessons. No, thank you. The Empress with the sacred fire at the bottom of the deck. It's that again. I saw this last time. Oh, the warrior! Look at the sun. Let's go. Do. And then look. See, and then here's this masculine energy that's down here scheming on a way to take the fire from the Empress. No. You see, the warrior is like feminine with that brazier, the sun, and then we got that scepter here, and like the scepter on that Empress. I don't know if that's the thing that the Emperor gives to the Empress. I don't know what that is. I know that the Empress gives the Emperor the Ankh. But I feel like the Emperor would have to give the Empress something in exchange, right? And again, it's not that it ain't known. My knowledge of a lot of stuff is limited, and I'm just like curious. I'm not so curious that I'm necessarily going to dive like full deep into a lot of stuff, but the Empress right now, it's speaking of in between spaces. The Empress right now is sitting at the heart maybe of that whirlpool that is Charybdis. And I say that because in the North Node world, it was Capricorn, Cancer. In the South Node, it was Gemini, Sagittarius. On this Emperor, it's like on the Empress, it's between Sagittarius and Capricorn. It's like, I can't hold it straight. But you see that? It's between Capricorn and Sagittarius. So we're still in the process of deciding. In one world, in reality, she is silenced, she is disguised, she is hidden. And the other one, she has the right of presence. love that. All that from some bug outside that sounded like a fire alarm going off. I was like, am I going to have to call like a fire truck or something? And then I open the door and I'm listening, and then I close the door and I don't hear it anymore. I'm like, okay, well, if your house is on fire, leave. Material things you can get back. And if you don't have insurance, maybe your life is more important than the things that you'll lose. And, you know, when it comes to memories and mementos and things that we have to remember people by, that can be sad. Those can't be replaced. But again, it's like, well, you know, maybe that person would also like it if you continue to live a little bit longer. And honestly, like, there was a little bit of an Eight of Cups energy that came in. And like I was saying about how the energy that we're moving into, what we're claiming more and more, what we're growing into more and more, old systems can't provide, so it's like they're falling apart. It's like this Eight of Cups tower energy potentially. And for someone who is attached to someone that they love or care about, that could be something that keeps them in a space that isn't necessarily the greatest. Where you feel a sort of responsibility for them. Well, if I pull my energy out, if I start doing what is best for me, then like this other person is going to fall apart. Now, I'm not telling anybody to go out and abandon their children. If your children depend on you, like that's not, like, use discernment and wisdom, right? But at the end of the day, like, us as people, we can't really be, we can only do so much for other people. And there are some things that when we are in a space of hurt and pain, or not as fully connected to self, we can expect or try to find or depend or rely on people to give us things that they can't give us. But again, it's like there are things that they can't give us. Eight of Wands. Oh my gosh. With the Empress at the bottom of the deck. She's like coming through. She's picking up momentum. And the Seven of Wands after that. Empress is like, all my life I have to fight. This is that Eve. If I had to give you more, it's only been a year, or something like that. Because I got my foot in butt on, and I ain't going nowhere. It took a while to get me here, so I'm going to take my time. Right, that energy. It's like, it took a while to get me here, and I'm not going anywhere. What's that? Nothing can stop me. We're on the way up, or whatever. I don't know music, girl. That's literally the extent of my musical knowledge. It'll be like a line in a song. And I'll be like, what's that song? Eight of Wands with that Empress energy. She is coming through. She is ready. She has been preparing for this moment. She's ready to speak. And it came out last year at some point. It's like when that Empress speaks, the whole world is going to listen. The world itself is going to respond to her voice. Things may shake and rumble, and I was like, I am not on here trying to be no doomsday reader. But it feels like the world itself is going to react to her voice when she speaks. Something will maybe be forever changed. Maybe something will be revealed. Right? Maybe. I thought today was Thursday, y'all. I really thought today was Thursday. I was triggered so much yesterday that I just completely forgot it happened. But by the end of the night, I was all right. Judgment and the moon. We only missing the sun. And we've already seen Judgment, the sun, and the moon. I think it was in the Pride Tarot. The moon, the sun, and then Judgment. Judgment in the Four of Pentacles. The Four of Pentacles and the Seven of Pentacles, which is 11 Pentacles. That's us coming into the space of really, like, it's one thing to know that thoughts become things. and that what you align to becomes your reality. And again, it's like it's one thing to say, it's one thing to know that we are all one. It's one thing to know that, there's a piece of the divine in you as well as a piece of the divine in everything else. But to experience that, to live that, to be in that, to stand in that is a completely different thing. And that's sort of what we have the opportunity and the potential to be coming into, to actually experience it. Look at that. Here's the Eight of Wands again, this time with the Two of Cups. Two of Cups, sort of, that's what started us on this gorgeous timeline. Bottom of the deck is the Nine of Swords. When we started, what's behind the Nine of Swords? Ooh, the Chariot. And the High Priestess. And the Ten of Swords. And the Six of Pentacles. You give what you get energy with the Six of Pentacles. And so sometimes when we ask, we also prepare ourselves to receive. And sometimes to receive, there are certain things that we have to let go of, that we intuitively and instinctually know. I think we know a lot of times. We just may struggle to accept it for whatever reason. But with the Chariot coming for that Nine of Swords, I feel like this is a more like, it can be in the beginning. It can also be when we find ourselves in a space of significant challenge. Regardless of how we sort of see things play out, we know that we know that we know that Spirit is not out here like giving us just enough rope, right? That you're going to be able to rappel all the way down, if that's what you're doing. I don't know. And it moves forward regardless of what it may fear. And in doing that, it experiences the truth of, again, that knowing that you're loved and supported by the universe, being a divine creation, knowing that there is divinity that rests within you and that rests within everyone, knowing that you're abundantly provided for, living that experience. And the more you experience it, the more that narrative builds and the faster it gets. This is that energy of like, seeing is believing. And so the more you see, the more you believe. And the more you believe, the less resistance. And the faster everything gets. That's the acceleration. And it's a lot for a person to handle. But in some ways, maybe it also speaks to how well we're doing, that things continue to accelerate. Well, take it as it resonates, because it can go either way, honestly. Either things are accelerating because it is more and more pressing and important that you allow for whatever needs to fade out, or it's accelerating because you're integrating and you're healing more and more and you're getting closer. As you intensify this new frequency, again, like that Empress, it has more of a position in your life. Now Spirit can show up more and more and more and more fully, to the point where like you thought your mind was blown before, you thought you knew how Spirit can like really just come in and change and operate things before. Well, you ain't seen nothing yet. Because for everything that you were doing, there were certain ways that you had not yet been healed, that you had not yet been changed. And now that you are releasing more and more of that resistance, you're opening up new paths, more avenues for a Spirit to sort of like flow in and find you. That's when things can be truly magical and wonderful. When we have more than like one or two paths, because there's so much resistance and everything else. And, that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. My last day before the summer solstice. Jupiter retrograding, summer solstice, and then what? Neptune is going to retrograde. Mercury is going to go direct, though. Anyway, I hope y'all have a good whatever whenever you see this. Thank you, D, for being here. This was interesting. Shout out to those bugs outside that made me think that somebody's house might have been burning down. I hope you'll have a good whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that you rise to the challenge, rise to the occasion, because you can and you're worth it. Like when you come into that self-love, low key, or at least for me, I can only speak for myself. And self-love like was such a heavy and for me sometimes difficult lesson, like learning to balance love for self and love for others in a way that forms healthier boundaries, in a way where I'm not like giving because I care so much for other people, but it's like, okay, well, I also got to care for me right now, so I also got to give to me. I also got to do for me what I need to do for me. And like when it came to like procrastinating less, like if I really loved me, then I would have a little bit more agency when it comes to what I need to do. If I really loved me, I wouldn't have so much resistance in doing what I need to do, even if it's not what I want to do, because I'm worth it. And no matter how much I got to sort of like break down, I'm worth a breakdown to be built up, to me at least. And so that's why I was like, I don't necessarily want to be challenged, but am I going to go back? No. And it's like, come on, spirit, don't abuse, don't abuse this. Don't abuse this. It's like, I don't want to do it, but I will because I was told to. Spirit ain't gonna do me like that. Spirit ain't gonna do any of us like that. No problem, D. I'll catch y'all later. Enjoy the rest of whatever time you have within this separate time that we call a day, right? Or whatever. Enjoy the rest of your day, your evening, your whatever, right?